Hello and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. Today, we are doing a top 10 of sorts of the new Assassin's Creed set. It's kind of a weird one, boys. It's Universes Beyond, straight to modern, but it's like mini pack, so you can't draft with it. You know, we still got a bunch of cards that look like Draft Shaft. And with that said, there's a lot of really cool cards, specifically that we think might be commander playable or cool in specific decks. So that's what we are going to be talking about today. Join with me today is Preston. Preston, how's it going?
Good. I've been having a pretty good couple last days, so my energy's up more than usual, and I'm excited to talk about some of these cards.
Glad to hear it, buddy. And then we also have Jason with us today. How's it going, man?
Oh, fine. My apartment has no air conditioning, has had no air conditioning for a week or so. They told me that they fixed it today, but they did not. And yeah, anyone out there want to sue my apartment complex on my behalf, you just let me know.
Help our popsicle out.
Yeah, poor
I'm
guy.
dying.
I'm sorry, man. And then hi, I am your host Morgan, and I'm also doing pretty well. I'm kind of excited for this set. As far as like some of these cards, I don't really understand why this set exists, but some of these cards I'm pretty excited about. So if you would like to support the show, you can do all the YouTube algorithm stuff, you know, like hitting like on the video, leaving a comment. Let us know what some of your favorite cards are from the set. Share it with a friend. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Check out our other videos, all that good stuff. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can support us over at patreon.com/geekandseek YouTube. Alrighty, boys, before we hop into our top 10, I got to ask, what is your background or experience with Assassin's Creed? Have you guys played any of the games or anything?
I personally played one Assassin's Creed game. I played Assassin's Creed 3. Honestly, had a lot of fun with it. Really cool game. I do like the concept of the Assassin's Creed games, but it's not something that I have a whole lot of experience with myself. But Assassin's Creed 3 was really fun.
Is that the American Revolution one?
American Revolution one, yep. Yep. The DLC, you have to George Washington becomes king of the United States of America. It's interesting.
Well, that's actually what a lot of the founders wanted was that. So that would have been an interesting parallel universe.
And George Washington in real life was like,
nah, dude.
That's literally what we just got out of. What do you mean? That's like...
Preston, what about you? Have you played any of the games?
I have not, but I have played the Shadow of games, which are just Assassin's Creed, but a little more realistic. You know, a little closer to reality.
That's not even kind of true. So I have not played a lot of Assassin's Creed. I played a little bit of Brotherhood. But I own Black Flag, and I haven't ever played it. So all of this Assassin's Creed hype is like, well, maybe I should finally give it a try. Maybe I should finally play Black Flag.
I've heard that's the best one from a lot of people.
Most people I've heard have said it's either Brotherhood or Black Flag are the two that a lot of people have told me is their favorite.
I heard Black Flag described as pirate simulator.
Yes, yeah. Steven and I play this game called Sea of Thieves a lot on Xbox Live. That's a fun, just pirate simulator. It's a good time. So let's do that, but with assassinating people. So that sounds fun.
Did you guys ever play the old the MMO Pirates of the Caribbean computer game?
I did not. No.
You know what I'm talking about though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I never played it though.
It was cool.
Oh, but did you guys ever see the Assassin's Creed movie?
No.
No one did.
Dude, it was so bad. Steven and I saw it in theaters, and there are very few movies that I feel like was not worth my money. That was one of the few. So that was too bad.
So Preston, I thought that you were wrong when you said that nobody went to see that movie. I was like, that doesn't sound right. And yeah, you were very wrong.
It did well.
That movie did very well. What do you mean?
Oh, it did?
Yeah,
I'm almost certain it lost money.
No, a movie had a budget of $125 million and worldwide grossed $240 million.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that's profit, but that's not like...
In the US, it did 54.6 million, and then that was the US and Canada, and then across other countries is 186.3 million. Which, I mean, hey, if it doesn't do well in America, that's one thing. But as a filmmaker, you're just like, did we make money on the movie? Yes. All right, it's a win.
Yeah. Well, and so much of movie going is in China. So that's really, if it has a 5.6 on IMDb, by the way, which is like,
I'm not saying it was good.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was good. I said people went to see it. People go see bad movies all the time.
All right,
People went and saw the Justice League movie in theaters.
That's true. That happened. All right. So as we go into our top 10, these are in no particular order. We will do like what we normally do, where we each go through and pick out our top 3 cards from the set. Give a little background as to why it's one of our top 3 cards. But to make it a top 10, we do have one card that we want to start off with that all 3 of us are pretty excited about. This is Excalibur, Sword of Eden. For 12 mana, it's a legendary equipment that says this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of historic permanents you control. As a reminder, historic permanents are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. You'll want to remember that for some of these other cards we're talking about today. Equipped creature gets +10/+0 and has vigilance. And you can equip a legendary creature for 2 generic mana. Who wants to start off with this one?
Pair this with Helm of the Host, or no, not Helm of the Host, Godo. I mean, obviously, if you wanted to just be a degenerate, you just play Helm of the Host with Godo. But if you want to be fun, you play this with Godo.
I like that. In a lot of decks, it's going to be little to no mana. Like it looks it's 12 mana, but it's not. Like I'm going to put this on my Kozilek Voltron deck. And not only, like, that deck just has so many other equipments, it has so many mana rocks, that this thing is going to cost so little mana, and it's going to put my commander in the range where it's a one-shot kill. Just by itself. Like, a 12-power commander with this is a one-shot kill.
I said Godo because you just search it up onto the battlefield. Wait, Can you search it with Godo?
Yeah, Godo, I think, finds any equipment.
That's okay. That's what I thought. But I'm definitely putting this in Dragon for sure.
I guess it is a one. It's not quite a one-shot kill because Dragon's 10 power.
Right. But that's 1+1+1 counter or something. Give it +1+1. But it also doesn't matter if it's a 20/20 vigilance flying dragon. Like You're gonna have a bad time. Also, it's not only that, but on attack, it's gonna give me a bunch of triggers. So like this is a really good card in Dragon. Especially like with Dragon on the battlefield, this is just like it's cheap.
Imagine this in a Galta deck. You play Galta for 2, you play this for 0, equip it for 2, hit someone for lethal immediately.
That's funny.
A good time.
You know what's really funny about doing it with Galta is so much of green card draw is power defiant. It's like Greater Goods, Rich Scar, Expertise, Return of the Wild Speaker. So imagine you play it for free after you spend only 2 mana on your Galta. You spend 2 mana to equip, right? You still probably have plenty of mana.
4 mana.
So now you follow it up with like, I don't know, 5-6 mana, one of those big draw spells. You probably just drew, what would that be, 22 cards? That's kind of awesome.
Gosh. And you have your Nyx Bloom Ancient on the battlefield because you're playing green because it's, Galta.
Yeah.
Tripling all your mana, so now you can just play all the cards that you just drew.
So
this is absolutely a big dumb win more card, but I love it. It's great.
It's good.
Yeah. I like also that it gives the creature vigilance. Like that can't be understated because a lot of the time you'll swing out, right? You'll attack, but then like now you're defenseless and someone else can attack you. Well, now you have this huge creature left as a defensive measure, which is nice. What do you guys think about the fact that it only has the equip for legendary creatures? I mean, obviously it's flavorful, right? It's Excalibur, right? It's the sword and the stone. You got to be worthy, So, but what do you guys think of that? Do you think that limits it, or do you think I'm mostly wanting it to put on my commander anyways, so that part doesn't matter, or what do you guys think about that part?
I mean, it definitely limits it technically, but I don't think it's the end of the world by any means. If you want to put this in your deck, that's not going to change your mind at the last minute, I don't think.
To me, this is a card that's specific for Commander. So it doesn't really matter that it says equip legendary creature. You're putting this in your Commander deck because you want to put it on your Commander anyways. So that's really... I don't think that it just being equipped legendary creature is really that big of a hindrance just because of where you're actually going to play this.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking it maybe it's not that big of a deal, even if you're just not playing a Voltron strategy, but if you're just playing like a go wide kind of equipment deck, it might be okay there because do you know what card you are playing if you're playing a deck like that? Pure Steel Paladin, which if you have Metalcraft, lets you move your equipments around for free. And you don't, that will be an alternate equip cost, so you can get around it that way. Or if you're playing like Sir Gwyn, which is the night one, right? So that does the same thing, yeah.
I was thinking that specifically because of how much love knights are getting in this set. Like, Assassins is definitely the number one type that's getting a lot of like benefits and a lot of love towards it, but there is a lot of knight synergy in this set as well. So this is also a really, really good card to have in a Sir Gwyn deck.
Yeah.
There's also like
Sir
30...
Gwyn is 5 mana, right? Sir Gwyn is 5 mana?
Sir Gwyn is 6 mana.
6 mana, so that's going to reduce it by 6 by itself right there, which I mean, even...
Not counting the other equipment you probably already have on board.
Yeah, exactly. So now you're paying 6 mana to play it. 6 mana for an equipment that, you know, in Sir Gwyn, you can equip for free, gives it +10/+0 in Vigilance. Like, that's a good card. For 6 mana, that's a good card.
Yeah, I think any Voltron-y strategy, it's going to be hard to not want to play this. Right. But even then, like, even if you're not always going to be able to throw it on a legendary per se, there are going to be times where you can still move this around in other ways. Or there's that one Fallout card, right, where you can... I think there's a Fallout card that you can move equipment around by tapping it. So, yeah, there's ways around. There's ways around it.
There's also inventory management.
Yep.
Just, I mean, you know,
that's like a one shot,
obviously,
yeah.
But yeah, you just play that. Now you just move it onto it for free, and I think it's also 2 mana.
It's 2 mana. Yeah.
I was gonna say there's like 30 legendary creatures that are legendary creature tribal at this point, so put it in any of those decks.
Oh my god, New Joda. And New Joda also gives the huge buffs already, right? Because on attacks, it gives your legendaries +X/+X, where X is the number of legendaries you control. So you do that on top of this.
Oh man, I just thought about
dying
something.
So fast.
I mean, I getting it onto the battlefield in this deck would be a little bit of a problem, but imagine this on Tymna. Oh my god.
That would be spicy. All right, Preston, do you want to talk to us about your first personal pick?
All right. So first up, I have Shay Cormac. It's a white and a black for a 1/1 legendary creature, human knight rogue. He has pay 1 generic mana. Permanents your opponent's control lose hexproof, indestructible, protection, shroud, and ward until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes the target of a spell or ability you control, you put a bounty counter on it. And then whenever a creature with a bounty counter on it dies, you get to put 2 +1/+1 counters on them. I just love how this says no you to 99% of protection. Like, I love a good protection spell, but saying no to your opponent's protection, love that. And like, it hits basically everything except for phase out. So there's almost nothing you can do about it. And he's only 2? This is pretty gross.
And it's only 1 mana to activate that.
1 mana, and like you don't have to tap him. And it doesn't say, like, I mean, obviously it can't. It really, never mind. The fact that you can do it at instant speed is so nice for just 1 mana. And honestly, I feel like that's an ability that's going to sit on the table for a little bit. If you're playing this as a commander, it's just going to sit there and people are going to forget about it, and then you just get somebody out of nowhere when they're not paying attention. It happens all the time in games of Commander, where things will just sit on the battlefield forever, and you'll be like, oh, I don't need to worry about that. And then, oh, I'm going to activate this. You're like, I forgot it could do that. Just throw off your whole plan.
Well,
I don't know
that
the
is an
flavor.
option, but I was gonna say this is basically a commander who says all of your kill spells for 1 extra mana will be able to target anything on the field,
That's true.
and you're playing white and black.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, because what I was going to say is that flavor-wise, I'm not sure why this is a legendary. Like, this feels like a toolboxy, like, oh, someone's got a Lightning Greaves out, or, oh, someone's got Miram, so it has Ward, like, and you can, like, tutor it out, like, use one of your creature tutors or whatever for it. And I was like, I don't know what the flavor reason is for it being a legendary, but I guess as a commander, the idea that you just play a bunch of targeted removal isn't a bad plan, because he's going to get huge while you're doing that too, because every time you do that, you're going to put 2 +1/+1 counters on him. I mean, eventually it could just become a decent threat. It's also worth mentioning that it's 3 relevant creature types. So, like, I'm probably going to put this in my human deck. Knight decks are kind of popular. Rogue decks are kind of popular. Rogue decks are usually blue, so maybe this is kind of odd for that. But it is 3 relevant creature types. The downside is that the like, probably, I don't know if it's the most played, but one of the most played protection spells is Teferi's Protection. This doesn't stop that. Like Preston had said, it doesn't stop phase out, but it does stop everything else. And that is really good, especially when, there's an Ulamog on the battlefield, right? And the only Wrath is an austere command, right? So this is like, okay, for 1 extra mana, I'm going to make sure my board wipe sweeps up the Ulamog too. So, yeah.
And you can use it with someone else's board wipe politically.
Mm-hmm.
Even though this doesn't touch phase out, because that it does everything else, you're basically forcing your opponents to have it. Like, you have to have the answer right now. You have to have this one specific way to save your stuff, otherwise it's going away. And I find that most of the time, when players need to have that one specific answer in their hand, they don't have it. I would say most of the time in games that I've played where somebody needs one specific card to save their board or to save everyone's board, they just don't have it in their hand. You have 99 cards in your deck. The odds of you having that one perfect card, not as high as you might think. And honestly, I think that this goes into any black-white deck just for that top ability. I mean, it's 2 mana to play and then 1 mana to activate. Yeah, it's only a 1/1, so it is going to die to a lot of stuff, but that's like, it could just be a 1/1 for 2 mana that has that top ability, and that would be a good card.
Yeah.
So, I know that I'm kind of the only one of the 3 of us that really pays attention to Modern. Something that we can't overlook is that this set is going to become Modern legal for some reason. I don't know why, to make the Modern players buy it too, not just the Commander players. But I think of all 10 of the cards we're talking about today, this is the one that's most likely to get played in Modern. I don't know if it's like a main board card, but it's probably a sideboard card, because the One Ring is such a popular card in Modern. And this doesn't get around the protection that the One Ring is going to give you on that turn it comes down, but it's a really efficient way to make the indestructible on the One Ring go away, which means now you can pick off the One Ring with your poison or your Boseiju or whatever. So that seems like a pretty good plan. The one downside is that Orcish Bowmasters is also really popular, so they flash in Orcish Bowmasters and just kill this thing immediately. but outside of that, I think of the 10 cards we're talking about today, this is the one that's most likely to get Modern play, I think. Jason, why don't you walk us through your first card?
Yeah, so the first one that I wanted to talk about was Crystal Skull. Is it Isu Spyglass?
I think it's Isu.
It is a legendary artifact for 2 and 2 blue. It says you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and then it says you may place historic lands and cast historic spells from the top of your library. And then it has tap, add 1 blue. I'm not a big fan of 4 mana rocks. Not a big fan of it. But it says you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and as everybody here knows, that is like my favorite thing to do in the whole game.
If Jason was a legendary creature, it would just say, "Look at the top card of your library."
Yep.
That's all it would say.
Nothing
Every
else.
time Jason reads that sentence, he moans a little bit.
Yeah, and you know, I go through these stages in my head of just pure joy and happiness, where it's like, I can do what? I can break the rules? Really? Are you sure? Okay. No, it's I also like that you can play lands, historic lands, and cast historic spells from the top of your library. I don't think the historic lands are going to come up nearly as much. I mean, you know, you're going to have those Manamo, School of Water's Edge, you know, where you can, things like that. But really
Urborg.
casting well, I was thinking, because I was trying to stay away from stuff that's not blue.
Oh.
But I mean, obviously, if you're playing a deck that has both colors in it, then yeah, that works.
Actually, you can play Urborg in a mono blue deck. It's just I'm not sure why you would.
Why would you?
Yeah.
But casting the historic spells from the top it's really nice. Anything that lets you play from the top of your library is just immediately going to be an impactful card in any game that it enters. And the fact that it can tap for mana when, you know, you look at the top card of your library and there's nothing there to play, you're going to get some other value out of it. Yeah, you don't want to pay 4 mana to get 1 mana, but you use that as like a backup value for it when you can't get anything off the top. Also, it's an artifact, so there's going to be a lot of different synergies that you can do with it. Like, you know, for like improvise, you know, you're going to be able to tap this to cast things from your hand for things like that. Affinity for artifacts.
Well, you could tap it anyways because it taps for blue, but
But to back up your point, Jason, the fact that it's a card that cares about historic spells and it itself is a historic spell means it's going to synergize with the rest of your deck. I think that the historic lands is probably going to become more relevant as more time goes on, because there already are a lot of historic lands that matter. Like, there are legendary lands that we play semi-regularly, right? Like, let's say that this isn't a mono blue deck. You know, you do have like your Manamos and stuff, but you also have Boseiju, you have Urborg and Yavimaya, you have Nykthos, and then there's also your artifact lands, right? Your artifact lands you can play from the top because they're historic lands.
Yep.
So really, I think artifact lands is going to, artifact decks are going to be your main thing you want to do. What's also exciting is that you're probably going to get a lot of value out of this because your artifacts are probably not that expensive. Like, if you could probably cast multiple things off the top of your deck per turn. So that's kind of exciting.
Guys, I think we might have broken mono blue Urza. We just might have done it. Just maybe.
Yeah, we did that. We are pioneers of mono blue Urza.
Yeah, I like this card. I'm curious to see where I would play it. I don't know if I would ever play it outside of a blue artifact deck, though. Like, you could play it in like those Joda decks, right? Or Sisay, you know, those legendary matter stuff. Maybe you could play it in Saga decks, except outside of Tom Bombadil, I don't think any of those are blue decks. So I don't know, but I think in blue heavy artifact decks, this is kind of sick. So yeah, it'd be cool. All right. Speaking of blue and artifacts, my first individual card is Leonardo da Vinci. This is going to be a mouthful, boys. This is for 2 and a blue. It's a 3/3 human artificer with 2 activated abilities. For 3 blue, until end of turn, Thopters you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. The other ability is pay 2 and a blue and tap it to draw a card, then discard a card. If the discarded card was an artifact card, exile it from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 0/2 Thopter artifact creature with flying in addition to its other types. So I'll have a video coming out probably next week where I'm talking about real life characters coming to Magic, because that's kind of a conversation in all of itself. That's just kind of weird that we should probably address. I'm not really going to talk about that really here today. You can tune in next week for that video. But I will say that I used to have a Thopter Typal deck, and it was a meme. And this is one of those kind of cards that probably could have made it a real deck. Like if this card existed back when I had that deck, this card probably could have made it actually like a playable deck, because that first ability specifically, you can make your Thopters huge. But that other ability is really cool just because you could get really interesting abilities out of those cards you're discarding. Which kind of opens it up to where, yeah, you could play this in a Thopter deck, whether it be your commander or you played in the 99 of a Thopter deck. But if it's your commander, I think that second ability is more interesting. You just play a bunch of artifacts that have interesting abilities, use the second ability, and you discard it, exile it, and you make a Thopter that is a token copy of it. That sounds like you could do some really interesting shenanigans. So I like this card because it has multiple uses. It's not just the one straight up thing. It's got a little bit of nuance, or you could try doing both things, I guess. So it's cool. It's interesting.
One thing I like about this card is the fact that it does seem more fair because it's 5 mana and then it's 3 to play, like to activate that first ability. Because, you know, when you play this, if you have the mana to activate it, you could be buffing your creatures by a lot, but especially if you're playing this as your commander in a mono blue artifact deck, we've already seen that there's plenty of ways to get cards in your hand. Like we all know what blue is really good at. It's countering spells and drawing cards. So I think that it being 5 mana to activate this ability, well, yeah, being 5 mana to activate this ability and then 3 mana to play it, that seems like a fair cost to potentially win the game when this hits the battlefield, I don't really care for that second ability too much. I do think it's interesting, but I don't know. I just don't really play decks like this. I do kind of want to say that I think it's really, really weird that this is a real dude.
Yeah.
Like you can go visit his bones. It's just
So tune in next week for that video. But yeah. Well, I'll get into it. I got a lot to say. All right. But Preston, do you have any thoughts about this one?
It is going to be used by people to cheat out a 10 cost legendary artifact or something, but it does make it a 0/2 creature, so you can at least kill it fairly easily. So I do think it's at least slightly more interesting and as one of those cheat out something for way less mana than you're supposed to decks, which is what people are going to do with this.
Yeah, you're going to do it for the ability, not the body, right? So that's why I think it's interesting. Like I think there's probably combos with it. There's probably combos with it. There's probably disgusting things you can do with it. But I think for the most part, you're just like, oh, here's a mana rock or something silly like that. Or
that second ability.
No, people are going to use it to make Chroma's Memorial. That's what people are going to use this with.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like you're not going to use this to bring your Blightsteel back. You're not going to spend 3 mana to bring your Blightsteel back as a 0/2 flyer, only then to pay 5 mana and buff it up. Like that's no. Yeah.
Also, doesn't Blightsteel just shuffle into your graveyard if you do that? So that doesn't even work anyways, even if you tried, right? Because it would graveyard.
But that whole thing would resolve first.
Yeah,
before Blightsteel's thing is a life check. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, you're right, because this is all.
It's still not like a good idea. You still probably.
Yeah, exactly. But it's because it's one paragraph. The whole thing has to resolve before any other abilities happen. So you would still be able to exile it if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think if I ever were to rebuild my Thopter deck, this would definitely go in there. And then I think as a mono blue weird stuff artifact deck, I think it also has a lot of interesting potential. All right, Preston, talk to us about your second card.
All right, so next up, I have Sigurd, Jarl of Ravensthorpe. It's a 3/3 legendary creature, human warrior, for a red, a green, and a white. It has vigilance, trample, and lifelink. And then boast, 1 generic. You put a lore counter on target saga you control or remove one from it. And boast is you can only activate it after it's attacked this turn, and you can only do it once a turn. And then whenever you put a lore counter on a saga you control, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. So I've been kind of thinking about doing a Saga deck for a while now. I was thinking of either doing Narcy uh, from the Commander Masters.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. So that one is really interesting. I've been thinking about building Ko for a while. This guy's interesting, but their colors don't match up. So at this point, I'm kind of thinking maybe I'm going to do a Tom Bombadil, just go all 5 colors. Because I've always kind of liked sagas. I've just never done anything with them. And this is just another cool thing I feel like to try to do some of that fun stuff. So that's why I put this as my second. I'm interested, but I don't have anything specifically planned out for sure yet.
To me, this is the type of deck that you build as a Voltron-y extra combat steps deck. Oh no, it's only once each turn.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, so here's what I actually do like this card. There is a lot of Saga support in this set. So if you're a Saga fan, paying attention to this set. A lot of cool new Sagas in this set. I don't know if any of them are on our list or not. Something that is interesting is that these are the colors of Sagas that are most likely to make tokens, right? And you're going to be able they're also in decent colors for just +1/+1 counter synergies in general, and you can proliferate, right? So you can there's the proliferate will care about your sagas, and it's also going to care about the +1/+1 counters that you're putting on your creatures. So what's nice about this, as opposed to some of your other options for sagas, is this is a very direct way of winning the game, because a lot of saga decks play similarly to what are they called, planeswalker decks, where they dirtle, they take forever to move all your dice, throw all your guys, right, and then you're not sure how you're supposed to win the game. This is a very clear way of winning the game. First off, it's a pretty impressive commander, 3 mana, 3/3 with 3 impressive keywords. It potentially is going to get bigger, and it's going to help you get through your sagas faster. So to me, this seems like if you want to play a saga deck that actually has a chance of winning the frickin' game, this seems like a good choice. All right. Jason, why don't you walk us through your next card?
So the next card that I wanted to talk about was Brotherhood Regalia. I don't know if I said that right, but it's an artifact equipment, and it's 2, and it says equipped creature has ward 2 and is an assassin in addition to its other types and can't be blocked. Equip legendary creature 1, equip 3. This is a really impressive artifact equipment that's coming out of this set. I think that there is potential for this to be like, I think this is probably the top 3 equipments in the deck, or in the set. Just because, for 3 mana you can equip this onto your commander, and then for 5 mana you can equip it onto like, a Blightsteel. I just like it. I think that it's a really strong card, and there's going to be a lot of decks that it goes into. Anytime I see a card like this and it's like 3 mana and it gives your commander all these things, like, I just feel like that this could easily slot into just about any deck if you want it to. Like, if you really wanted to play this card to give your commander some extra protection and, allow it to get through for easy damage here and there, this is an easy card to slot in because it's just cheap. It's cheap to cast, cheap to equip.
Yeah, people would play this if it only gave the can't be blocked. The ward 2 is actually kind of insane, considering it's letting any legendary creature not get blocked for 3 mana. That's a lot of value.
So I will say that if I think you have to care about both of those things. I think you have to care about the protection, and you have to care about the creature not being blocked. So like if you have a big commander that's smacking face and you're trying to commander damage people out, then obviously this is great. Or if you're just incidentally, your deck has a lot of big creatures that people are going to want to be removing if they can, then that's good. And the reason I say that is because there's efficient ways of doing both of those things individually. So if you only cared about one of those things, there's better options. But if you care about both things, then this is by far your best option. There's something else about this card, though, that makes it even better than what you just said. The fact that it makes the creature an assassin in addition to his other types. That usually doesn't matter, except there's a new mechanic in this set called free running. And free running is a mechanic on the set. So I'll give an example here. All right. This card is Eagle Visions, which for 4 and a blue. It's a sorcery that says draw 3 cards. All right. 5 mana, draw 3 cards, not very good, but it has free running. So for 1 and a blue, it says you may cast this spell for its free running cost if you dealt combat damage to a player this turn with an assassin or commander. Then it's a 2 mana draw 3. All of a sudden, that's a lot better. So the fact that you could throw this on one of your creatures and it's an assassin now, if it deals combat damage, you triggered free running, and now all of your free running cards are turned on. And I don't know how many of the free running cards are really going to be that playable, but if you have a commander or assassins in your deck that want to be dealing damage, really this kind of loops back to like, big Voltron-y builds or just efficient commanders or commanders with evasion, right? If your commander has flying, it's going to be a little easier for you to find someone to attack. The free running matters. Now, if it's specifically your commander, that's going to turn on free running anyways. But if you just have other cards in your deck that you can put the Brotherhood Regalia onto, that's also going to turn on your free running.
And I still think that even at 5 mana to equip this to a regular creature, it's still good for getting making it an assassin, can't be blocked, and the ward 2. That could be if it just said equip 3, it costs 2, that it would still be a good card. The equip legendary creature for 1, that's what puts it over the top for me.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, so my number 2 card is Jackdaw. It's for 1 blue and a red, so 3 mana. It's a legendary vehicle, 4/4 if it's crewed. It has a crew cost of 3. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may discard your hand. If you do, you draw a card for each artifact you control. This is insane. I just built a new Jeskai vehicles deck. Bro, this is going in there so fast.
So good.
This is going to be so cool.
Good.
Because vehicle decks are also, it's not just a vehicle deck. They just are artifact decks, right? So you're just going to have other artifacts laying around. You probably have some treasure tokens. You're going to have your mana rocks. Maybe you have some artifact lands. So if you can make contact with this, maybe you have 3 or 4 cards in your hand. Maybe you wanted those cards, but won't you probably just take the deal and draw 10 new cards or whatever? That seems pretty good. I will say the one downside of this is it has no evasion at all. It has no trample. It doesn't have flying. It's a boat. It doesn't have island walk. There's probably...
It's a flavor fail right there.
Yeah, right. But I will say in a game of Commander and you have 3 opponents, there's probably one person who you could get in on. And if not, maybe you're like, hey, so-and-so's a problem. We need to wipe the board. I don't have a board wipe, but I might draw 1. Can I hit you for 4? And I mean, the real answer is they shouldn't let you do that, but they might. They might if one of the other opponents is so far ahead that the board wipe is needed. So in those kind of situations, that could happen. But I think this card is fair just because it has no evasion. It's going to be really easy to just chump block it for days.
There's so many ways
it's so cool,
to mess
man.
this card
it's
up.
so cool. It's so cool. Oh, also, I would probably just play it in wheel decks too. Because the Nekusar, right, is probably the most popular wheels commander. And he's Grixis, so it's in the right colors. And because you're Grixis, you're going to have a bunch of mana rocks. So I think you probably wouldn't have to try too hard to probably make Jackdaw work in that deck as well. Could you just play this in any artifact deck, though? I feel like you probably could.
I mean, as long as it has the colors, for sure. Yeah, I think that it's good enough to do it there. I just like to think of some crazy stuff. But you play a dockside. Make all of them treasure tokens.
Oh my god. You could have 20 treasure tokens, draw 20
cards.
Oh my god, you just decked yourself. Dockside, no!
Get in for damage with this. Draw your whole library. Oh man.
And then Thassa's Oracle for the win.
Yep.
Thassa's Oracle. Fair magic.
Only fair magic around these parts. This is like one of the first vehicles that I actually am like, I kind of want to put this into a bunch of decks. First of all, I really kind of want to put it into Joyra, although I don't know that it will actually get much value from Joyra, but it probably will. Just because
you also have to have creatures that can crew it, right? Because
exactly.
At least 3 powers worth of creatures to crew
it.
3 power is not nothing.
Which I can do that with Joyra. Joyra is a 3/3, so I just crewed. I mean, She is a captain.
This is true. She is the weather-like captain. Yeah.
The flavor would be there.
Yeah. We also have the pirate deck.
That's another thing. Thing because this is in those colors as well. It's like I'm gonna put it in that deck too. This is actually a really exciting card. I love cards that can potentially draw you a whole bunch, especially artifact themes, and especially in these colors. I mean, my Joyride deck is an artifact deck. It's Artifact Storm. So this is just gonna help fuel my hand. If I make contact with this in Joyride, I'll just load up my hand and then probably be able to play all those artifacts for very low cost or free.
This card deck obviously has an insane high end, but there's so many ways to get it to not do its thing where like I'm not bothered by it. Mm-hmm. So you guys have fun with it. I'm not interested in any of my decks, at least not currently, but it
does just get chump blocked for days, right? But it's really easy to just make sure nothing ever happens. But man, I mean, it's gonna.
You're playing blue and red, so you can make it evade, like give it evasion or give it trample. But
here's something else I just thought about. Vehicles help you recover from board wipes, right? Because if you have this obviously doesn't work if someone like austere commands or farewells and chooses artifacts as well. But say there's a board wipe, right? And there's no creatures on the board, but they didn't blow up the artifacts, so your Jackdaw is still there. You just have to play a creature. Creatures can crew vehicles even while the creature is summoning sick. So then you're probably going to be able to just come in and swing. So I actually think vehicles are undervalued. I think that vehicles are a good way to try to recover faster from board wipes. So
I would agree with that. Another point that I want to make about this card is that it's not a really dangerous looking card, but then if someone gets to use it one time, the rest of the table is going to immediately see that is something that needs to get that they need to get rid of. And honestly, I just love the fact that I would be forcing my opponents to use a removal spell on this instead of like my commander or an actual combo piece or my win. Use your resources to destroy this one ship that might draw me a bunch of cards and leave my other stuff alone. I do like that it does kind of have a little bit of diversion in it.
Or they just overload a Vandal Blast and you're really sad. Preston, why don't you go ahead and talk to us about your last card?
All right. My final card is the Capitoline Triad. It's a 7/7 legendary creature, Guard Artificer. It costs 10 generic mana, but it has an ability, Those Who Came Before. This spell costs 1 generic less for each historic card in your graveyard. So your artifacts, your legendaries and sagas. And then it has the thing where you can exile any number of historic cards from your graveyard with total mana value 30 or greater. You get an emblem with creatures you control have base power and toughness 9/9. This card's dumb as hell, and I love it.
It's so cool.
This is not a good card. I don't think it's ever gonna really work, but God, do I need to try it at some point?
Obviously it can be a commander, right? Because it is a legendary creature. But the downside is that it's colorless, and it's not that you have. It's not like you don't have a ton of historics available to you in colorless, right? Like you have a bunch of artifacts. The problem is that colorless has a hard time putting things into its graveyard on purpose. So I almost wonder if you could play like a mono blue artifact deck, and play a bunch of looting effects, and then this is just your finisher. I don't know. What's the best way to do this? Is this like a 99 finisher in certain decks, or do you think it could work as a commander? Because I just don't know if I could trust that I'm just incidentally going to get enough crap to exile.
Well, my plan with it, if I do build this deck, is I'm going to make an artifact, like colorless artifact, like tribal sort of deck, and just play that deck normally. And if I get board wiped enough times, I'm like, all right, play my commander, exile all the stuff that you blew up. All my stuffs are 9/9s. Have fun. That's my idea, but there's a couple ways you could build around this.
Is this the first card that's not a Planeswalker to give emblems?
I think so.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, when you're saying this card isn't good, I don't agree with that at all.
No, it's good. I just don't know how consistently you can get stuff into your graveyard.
Preston said it. When Preston said that he didn't think that this card was actually good, I just don't agree with that at all. It does something that no other creature has the ability to do. It does something that only planeswalkers can do. Emblems can't be removed. So it makes sense that the activation cost to get that would be so high. And I think that this is a late game finisher. This isn't something that you really want to play in the early game or mid game. I don't even think that this is going to be good to build as a commander. But I think that this is, in any artifact deck, this is going to be that late game finisher where you're going to make your commander a 9/9. And if you have other creatures to swing in with, great. But now that your commander's a 9/9, you're going to be able to start taking people out with commander damage pretty dang quickly. So
I just broke it. I just broke it.
How'd you break it?
Okay, so first of all, we have to address the fact that there is no way to interact with emblems in the whole game. There's nothing in the game that interacts with emblems.
Yes.
So
that's one of the reasons I think it's so powerful.
If you can do it, you will be unstoppable. Your 1/1 Thopters are all of a sudden 9/9s. You know, that's terrifying. So you do this by just playing an artifact, like a sacrifice deck, right? So you play your commander spheres, your mind stones, your Hedron archives, right? You're playing cards that they will give you some value, but you can sacrifice them, get them into your graveyard on purpose. And then you can also play things that they will give you incidental value when they go to your graveyard, cards like Ichor Wellspring and cards like that. And then you get them there with cards like Ironclad. What's it called? They just had to ban it in Modern. It's an artifact that you can sack other artifacts to add to colorless mana. So you just do that kind of crap, and you're going to get there really fast. I feel like you have to be able to get there really fast. There's other things that sacrifice artifacts too. So, and tons of artifacts that sacrifice themselves. And then you just have to make sure that you follow it up with some kind of token makers or something like that. Right? There's like Hingerback Walker, right? Which is it's a big creature. It's an X-spell creature. And then when it dies, you make a number of Thopters equal to the number of counters on it. Right? So you play a good amount of big, small, go wide kind of artifacts mixed with just the artifacts that sacrifice themselves. Maybe this isn't that hard. Maybe this is actually kind of easy.
Another thing, an all-star, if you build this as a commander, and probably one of the best cards in that deck is going to be Altar of Dementia.
Yeah. Because keep in mind, you also are going to have... you will have creatures to sacrifice to it, because you will have ones that just come in and automatically do the thing, right? Like Sky Scanner. It's like a 3-mana 1/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. There's another one that does the same thing, except it finds a basic to put in your hand. Solemn, yeah. Yeah, okay, never mind. This is easy. This is crap.
That's
never mind. This is really good.
When Preston said, "I don't think this card is actually," I was like, "What are you talking about?"
The more we talk about it, yes, I actually do think this card is actually broken. Also, I realize I think how I want to do it. Actually, I'm gonna build 5-color Essica, God Tribal. Play that land where you get to go find any number of gods out of your deck.
The World Tree.
Because this is a god, so the World Tree. So I realize how I want to do this now. Oh, and you guys are not gonna like this deck,
dude. It's historic permanence. You could put this in your Sagas deck.
Yep.
This card's really, really good. I kind of feel like subconsciously, Preston, you realized how good this card was. That's why you put it at number 1. But I'm glad that we were able to come around to it. I'm shocked.
At first I was like, dang, that's really flashy. That's going to be too really...
That's too much to do, but this is Magic. We know there's so many ways to get around that.
Yes.
Well, I was just thinking of like looting and intentional discard effects. I was like, Colorless doesn't have a lot of that, but Colorless does have sacrifice. So
this card rules.
Okay. This is badass. All right, Jason, on that note, walk us through your number 1 card.
All right. The number one card that I wanted to talk about, and forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. I'm just going off how I read it. Caduceus. Caduceus.
If you're a Greek nerd, correct him in the comments.
Or if you're just an Assassin's Creed fan and you know what this is actually called.
At some point, I'm pretty sure I knew how to pronounce that, but I do not currently.
So we're just going to call it the other part of it, Staff of Hermes. It's a legendary artifact equipment for 2 and a white. It has equipped creature has lifelink, and as long as you have 30 or more life, easy. Equipped creature gets +5/+5, has indestructible, and prevent all damage that would be dealt to this creature, and it has equip white. Obviously, if you're not playing a deck that has white, this card is worthless. But I think that this is the second best equipment in the whole set. This card is amazing, especially in a commander deck. Holy smokes, dude. I mean, just being able... The last equipment that I talked about, and the first one that we talked about, we were talking about equipping with your commander. So this is like almost like a Voltron type set. That's kind of what I'm gathering. But just equipping this to your commander. Like, I think about equipping this to Ur-Dragon. Giving Ur-Dragon indestructible, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Ur-Dragon. It gets +5/+5. Now if I give it double strike, which is really easy to do in a dragon deck, you're just dead. And I'm going to gain a bunch of life because I've given him lifelink. And he's not going to go anywhere because he can't be dealt damage. And he has indestructible. I just think that this card is insane. The value that you're getting on it is just immense. And it's a card that is going to draw everyone's attention. So, you got to play this in a spot where you're going to get it on the battlefield, equip it, and swing with that creature right away because people will not let you have it for a rotation. It's too dangerous, especially if you're at 30 of life. This card's amazing.
I cannot wait to put this in Trostani onto one of my creatures whose power and toughness are equal to my life total. That's going to be fun.
Dude, the combo potential for this is nuts.
I hate cards that are templated like this. Because the idea is that, because this is a modern set, the idea is that it should say you have 10 life or more than your starting life total, is how they should have worded it. Like, if your life total is 10 or more than your start, like they have cards templated like this, but because it says 30, that just means that if you get this early enough in a commander game, it just automatically is degenerate instead of having to work for it. So I hate that. I absolutely hate that design space. You should have to work for it a little bit. You shouldn't be able to drop this for 3 mana, equip it for 2, and it's one of the best equipments.
Yeah, like
with work.
What's that one creature?
It is 5 mana, and 3 of it is specifically white pips. That makes it a little more fair.
I don't think that's a big restriction.
It's not a big one, but it's a little bit.
I don't think that matters. I mean, it's not like your turn 5 is when you do that. You turn 3 is when you cast it, unless you ramped. It's at the latest, it's turn 3, and then you equip it on turn 4, and you probably already had a creature in your smacking face. I will say one other thing about this card that I don't think has been mentioned yet is even if you don't have the middle clause, the part where it says if your life total is 30 or more, even if it doesn't have that part, like if it's later in the game or whatever, it does just give a creature lifelink, which will, one, help keep you alive longer, but it will pull you closer to getting back to that other ability as well. Like, that is like a threat that, like, this will have to get removed or you will claw back into the game. Yeah, this card's kind of insane.
Yeah, so
would you play it outside of a life gain deck or so life gain decks, yes. Voltron decks, yes. You probably
if it has
also
big
played
creatures.
You would? Like, if you just generically had big creatures, you would play this?
Yeah, because you'll gain 12 life.
Listen, here's the thing. I've talked about how I evaluate cards on the podcast before. the main way that I will evaluate a card is how good is it in the early game, how good is it in the mid game, how good is it in the late game. This card checks all 3 boxes. It's so good in every phase of the game. Early game, you're already meeting that 30 or more life requirement. So now whatever creature you're equipping is going to be indestructible, get +5/+5, and you can't deal. And nothing can deal damage to it because it's not even that like prevent damage like dealt from sources your opponents control. Prevent all damage. So like even if you play a board wipe or something. I mean, obviously the indestructible is going to take care of that anyways, but if somebody had played Shay Cormac and made your thing lose indestructible, it can't damage can't be dealt to it. That's another thing that I guess we didn't talk about that Shay Cormac doesn't touch. Like it says, prevent all damage. Like that's not protection. That's just a static ability that it has. But so even if somebody does activate something like that, or like does a Shadow Spear type of effect where they make you lose the indestructible, the creature's still gonna have prevent all damage that would be dealt to it. So early game, it's gonna do some really good stuff for you. Mid game, it's gonna do exactly the same thing that it's gonna do in the early game. And then in the late game, it's gonna help you build back up your life total so that you could potentially extend how much game time you have so that you have a chance to win.
Does this work with like Infect? Because okay, because what I was thinking is I was trying to think of like why does it have to be indestructible and prevent all damage? I was like trying to think of why it has to do both of those things. Because more times than not, that'll lead to the same outcome. But I guess there are going to be niche scenarios where that matters. But yeah, I think this card's kind of insane. I hate the templating, but it'd be like that, Chief.
No, this would help against Infect, yeah. Infect is damage.
In fact,
because that's what I was thinking. Is one of the like if you were like, okay, I'm gonna chump block your indestructible creature. Psych, I have Tainted Strike in hand. Like that's a way to get rid of indestructible creatures, right? So that would mean that your indestructible creature is still safe.
I guess I was thinking about it as Infect is like the -1/-1 counters replace the damage, but now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, Infect is this creature deals damage in the form of -1/-1 counters to creatures and Infect counters to players.
Mm-hmm. All right, and for our last card of the day, this is my last personal pick of the day. This is another historical figure. This is Sokrates, Athenian teacher. For 1 white and a blue, human advisor, legendary creature with defender, 0/4, has hexproof as long as it's untapped, and you can tap it to until end of turn. Target creature gains if this creature would deal combat damage to a player, prevent that damage. This creature's controller and that player each draw half that many cards rounded down. So it's kind of like, what do I compare this to? It's like if Maze of Ith was a secret rendezvous, you know? Like you're gonna prevent that damage. You're gonna hand out some cards. You can use it politically. You can use it on yourself, right? If someone goes to alpha strike you or has a big swing coming in at you, you're gonna give them cards, which you probably don't want to do. But at least you bought yourself the turn or whatever. But you can use it politically as well. This seems kind of cool. I also just kind of like political cards. I just like cards that are like, oh, it's group hug. It doesn't have to be group hug, but it kind of is. I just like these kind of political cards that can take advantage of the multiplayer aspect of Commander. So I have at least one deck I'm going to put this in, probably 2.
This is definitely in the running for one of the most fun cards from the set. Like you're just going to get this into a game, and anybody who is on, if you do it with your creature so that you draw cards, obviously that's probably what you want to do most of the time. The other person's going to enjoy it just as much because they're going to be drawing cards, but you can also use this for the, not yourself if you want to just draw the whole table cards, like if you wanted to use it like that group hug. But I just think that all the different situations that this card could be useful in, it's going to make it a really fun thing to play, and it's going to make games really, really interesting because you can do it at instant speed. So you can do it when people aren't even expecting it to. You can use it to save somebody from dying. Like a Maze of Ith. I like it. I again, weird that it's a real dude. Like this dude, like anybody that drank the same water that I drink, and you can't put him on a magic card unless they created magic. or at least created like a form of magic. Rest in peace, Sheldon.
I made a joke about it in our Discord about like how this kind of feels disrespectful. About like this is literally Sokrates, and he's like a political group hug card. Like that. I don't know what a real like a Sokrates card would have to be for me to be like nice. I don't know what that would actually have to be, but I'm just saying like from a gameplay perspective, I want to play this card.
Also,
No,
I think
it makes
funny.
sense. He's a philosopher. Philosophers are annoying, and so is group hug.
Oh my god,
perfect.
Preston! No,
No one has ever said group hug is
Philosophy is-
annoying.
philosophy is what separates us from the animals.
It's
Oh no, I
Morgan's-
don't actually think that. It was just a funny thing to say.
It's
cringe.
It's Morgan's type of group hug that people don't like, where it's like, yeah, it's group hug, except I'm gonna keep
Except
looping
I'm winning.
Spore Frog so I
Yeah.
don't take any damage or
Yeah.
die at all, but
Well, how
I'm
am I
gonna keep
gonna
killing
group
you
hug?
guys.
How am I gonna group hug
I mean,
if
this
I'm
is
dead?
also not. I'm going to not die.
Yeah.
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 It can't be understated that you are drawing your opponent's cards. Right.
100%.
So it's
Well,
like, yeah, I'm
the-
buying myself time. Yeah, I'm pillow forting myself or whatever. But I'm giving you a bunch of answers to find a way to deal with it anyways. So
The
the
flavor
dream
there
is-
is really nice because he's a teacher, and so he's like preventing your the damage that you're doing. He's like, no, don't do that. Let me learn you something real quick.
yeah.
Well, the dream is player C is going to attack player B and kill them. But you use Sokrates, they draw the last 3 cards when they only have 2 cards left in their deck. So you actually kill player C. That's what you want to try to do with this guy.
Hey, yeah,
That's
the
there
dream.
you go. Yeah.
That would be funny.
Just make this a persistent petitioners deck and mill everybody.
That's hilarious. That
Are they
This
also
is-
defenders? Someone has to build Arcades, but with Sokrates and 87 persistent petitioners.
Is he good in Arcades?
persistent petitioners does not have defender. It can't attack. It's a 1/3.
Oh,
That's sad.
Wait, no,
Never
this isn't
mind.
good in Arcades, is it?
yeah. I was gonna say I didn't think this was good in Arcades because you
in
don't want to
Arcades you want to
swing
smack.
with it.
Yeah, in Arcades you want to smack face.
Yeah.
Socrates
so you
does
don't
not
wanna-
wanna smack
you,
face. You
You
wanna
don't want to
be
be
leaving it up.
preventing damage. You don't want to be
Well-
preventing damage. You want to be inflicting damage.
Well, no, you use your defenders to hit people, and when they try to hit you back, you prevent it. And then you get to draw some cards.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's fair.
Yeah. I guess if Arcades is already out and then you cast Socrates, you get to draw a card, which I guess is nice. It is in the right colors for an
It is.
Arcades deck, so I guess that's something you could consider. I don't know if that's like objectively correct. I don't know if it necessarily makes the Arcades deck any better, but it is something you can do. It's probably fine. But yeah. Well, guys, that is going to do it. Those are our collective top 10 favorite cards from the new Assassin's Creed set coming out. Let us know what you guys think. If you have any favorite cards that we weren't able to talk about today, are you a fan of the games? Are you excited about this Universes Beyond, this crossover? Let us know. We'd love to get learned. We'd love to learn a few new things today. So we'll be back next week for another episode of the podcast. Hope you guys have a good week. Oh, also, in 2 days from now, we're having the Modern Horizons 3 episode of our gameplay series coming out. Guys, isn't this ridiculous? Modern Horizons 3 just came out and we're already having to talk about a new set. Isn't this ridiculous? This is crazy. So tune in for that, and we will see you guys later. Bye.